Hello and welcome to TG Talk, where we talk to the generation about reaching the world for Christ. Hello, my name is Bobby Bosler, and welcome to The Generation YouTube channel. If you like these videos, why don't you hit subscribe down below and hit the bell if you'd like to be notified whenever we release a new one. Here on the TG Talk today, I'd like to just spend a moment focusing on one little phrase in Philippians chapter 1. We looked at it briefly in our last episode, but here today I want to zoom in on just one little phrase, Philippians chapter 1, verse 21. Here the Apostle Paul says, "For to me, to live is Christ." You know, I don't know if you have thought a whole lot about this, but what does he mean by that? You know, in the context, again, we've been looking at this. We know that Paul is in jail. God's doing great things amidst his confinement. He's burdened to present the gospel to Caesar. He's praying that folks will pray for him to have boldness to do it. And he says, I don't know how that's going to work. He might get saved, but he might also cut my head off. I'm really not sure, but honestly, it doesn't matter to me because to me, to live is Christ. You know, really what he means by that is core to what the generation is all about. And I recognize here on this YouTube channel, this TG Talks series, I may have a lot of people that also listen to our The Generation podcast, which if you haven't had a chance to start listening to that, please do that. But I wanted to kind of, through this phrase, briefly introduce you to what the generation is all about. You see, when he says, "For to me to live is Christ," he's saying, listen, as far as I'm concerned, life is all about doing what Jesus wants me to do. In other words, life is about living Christ's will. He says, want to do whatever Jesus wants me to do. I want to do anything. I'm willing to do anything, and I'm willing to do everything that he wants you to do. You know what that's called? That's called total surrender. There wasn't anything that Jesus could ask Paul to do that he would say, you know what, Jesus, that's going a little bit too far. No, because he was totally sold out, totally willing to do anything Jesus wanted him to do. And you know that's what the generation, that's a part of what the generation is all about. It's a generation of young people who just want to do what Jesus wants them to do. But you know, there's another dynamic to this as well. He says, "For to me to live is Christ." And there's another sense in which the Christian life isn't just about surrendering to the will of Jesus. It's actually living the life of Jesus. Or to put it another way, it's being enabled by the direct power of Jesus Christ. Galatians 2:20 puts it this way. It says, "I am crucified with Christ." And what he's saying in the context there is, I'm united with Jesus, and therefore what happened to Jesus also happened to me. Was put in Jesus, and therefore when Jesus was nailed to the cross, I also was nailed to the cross. And he says, I'm crucified with Christ, nevertheless I live. You know what? I'm still here, yet not I, but Christ liveth in me. In other words, he's saying, listen, you know what the animating power, the enabling power in my life is now? It's Jesus. Now, you know, I know we all understand that Jesus is supposed to be living the Christian life through us. I think most of us are aware of this. It's not about us gutting it out and trying our best. It's about Jesus living his best in me. But I think a lot of times we're perplexed by that. How does that happen? How do we get Jesus to live his life through me? Is it automatic, or is this something I need to do? Well, he says here, he answers that question in the verse. He says, "And the life which I now live in the flesh," this bag of bones, "I live by the faith of the Son of God." In other words, the way that we let Jesus live through us is not only by surrendering to what he wants, but it's depending on him to, through us, enable us to do what we could never do in our own strength. I'm going to put a link in the description to a message entitled 0-100 by Dr. Jim. I really want to encourage all of you to listen to that. If this is something you have not heard before, if total surrender and total dependence, if the 0-100 life is a new set of phrases to you, please get and follow that link and listen to that sermon, because I'll tell you, it'll change your life if you let you. But back to our Philippians passage, Paul is facing something that seems impossible. To give the gospel to Caesar. You got to be kidding me. Even Paul knew he couldn't do that. And he says, but you know what? Whether I live or die, I don't care, because to me, life, living, is all about doing Jesus' will. And furthermore, living is all about depending on Jesus' power to turn the world upside down with the gospel. Does that sound familiar? Because that's biblical. That's not just true for teenagers, that's true for adults, that's true for any Christian. Really, our job here on this planet is to be totally surrendered to God and totally dependent on His power to turn the world upside down with the gospel of Jesus Christ. And young people, that is the core message of The Generation. The Generation is not a website, it's not a YouTube channel, it's not a cool orange sticker. Okay, The Generation is a movement of young people that are committed to that message. Young people, I want to challenge you. Are you surrendered to Jesus? Are you willing to do anything and everything He wants you to do? Furthermore, are you depending on His power to do what you never thought you could do? I'm telling you what, if you'll totally surrender to Him and totally depend on His power, there is no stopping what God can do in and through your life. Hey, let's turn the world upside down for Jesus Christ. Let's let the gospel go viral here in this world. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.